Senator Jose Castaneda is with us, represents District 40 of Minot in our Meet Your Legislators series. We spoke with the senator earlier in the session, so now a chance to get caught up to see how things are going. And of course, our Meet Your Legislator series brought to you by the North Dakota Petroleum Council and the Lignite Energy Council. Been a fun project to get to know lots of new folks that are representing the legislature. And with term limits coming, these are going to be the folks that ultimately in the next 2 sessions or so are going to be the leaders and the institutional knowledge. So, Senator, nice to see you.
Very nice to see you as well, Scott. But yeah, you're definitely right. It's as a freshman, it's one thing to come into, an institution that is kind of set, and you can kind of think, okay, kind of long term, and what I want to do, and right off the bat, like boom, you're looking at the 7 freshmen, at least in my Senate class. If we all get reelected, we're going to be the ones that are going to be the most senior come around 2028. And that's kind of an interesting thought.
A little bit daunting, I imagine.
Oh, for sure, undoubtedly.
Yeah. So just talk about your journey here from running and winning and coming in here and orientation to now. We talked to you early in the session. Now it's fairly late in the session. What's it been like?
It's been a whirlwind. It is. There's so much to do, and I've learned so much and so much still to learn. In fact, one of the senators, older senator, was talking to me and another one of my freshman colleagues, and it was interesting because he was talking about freshmen. He looked at us. He's like, "Well, we're almost near the end of the session." He's like, "You guys aren't freshmen anymore. You know what's going on." And to a certain extent, yeah, I think we've gotten to that point where we all really know what's going on, as in kind of like day to day how things run. Now, to have the in-depth knowledge that many of these senators have been here, just. Some cases, 8, 12 years, 16. It's to get that level of knowledge is interesting because sometimes, you're sitting there in a debate about something. Someone will stand up and be like, well, let me give you a history of where this has been. And sometimes those histories are pretty useful. So I think something we're going to have to start doing is when they're not available anymore in the Senate to discuss those histories, we're going to have to go find them and say, okay, tell me the history on this so I can better understand how this, legislation that we're trying to pass, really affects everybody.
So let's talk a little bit about what particular committees and different, maybe pieces of legislation that you've been most gratified to sort of turn the wrenches on and get under the hood a little bit.
So I've been in the Judiciary Committee and the Vice Chair of State and Local Government. But outside of that, 2 interesting pieces of legislation are one of them is I had 4 bills initially that I introduced. 3 of them died. One of them was just a backup bill for something in case it didn't pass the House. But ultimately, the one that I sponsored that passed, pretty happy with it. It allows dentists to be able to get together and work with insurance companies with 2 or more dentists actually getting together, where prior to this, it would have been completely illegal for them to do so because of antitrust regulations. The federal government has set up a structure in which if you follow and set up a structure within your state, you're no longer in violation of those antitrust regulations. So this bill set up that structure with the Attorney General's office, if you will, as the arbiter. So now, as long as it's purely voluntary, and it has no fee-related issues, so dentists can't say, well, I want to get paid $1,500 for a crown. I'm only getting $1,000 from the insurance company. Just none of that. Just bigger issues about, how they get paid, in what ways they would like to see something that they feel if a plan was structured a little differently might better benefit their customers, their patients. And so now, because of this bill, they'll be able to do that. So they can now together come to a table, discuss things. No one's mandated to do so. They can talk about costs, just about generally the structure of plans. And hopefully they take advantage and do that. And if not, at least now a table is set for people to get together and have discussions outside of, showing up to the legislature every other year and saying, well, can you pass this legislation because what they're doing, I don't like it, pointing fingers. The question should be, hey, did you guys try to figure it out on your own first, and what did you come up with? So pretty happy with that.
Yeah, no, makes sense. Sounds like it's better for the consumer and the patients as well. How does a bill like that come to be?
It's actually came to me by the Dental Association, and they just had this idea of something that could be done based on federal law and how if a state, like I said, sets up the structure, we could do it. They said, no state has been able to do this. Would you be interested in sponsoring this and seeing if we can make it work? And so I sat down, they explained it to me, explained, all this I'm telling you, I didn't know prior to this, looked at it and said, I don't think it would be a bad idea. And so I said, yeah, I got on board, and I've been learning tons and working with insurance companies, insurance lobbyists, dental. Obviously, I had to get it through the House and the Senate. It was interesting. It went through the IBL in the House, but it went through Health Human Services here in the Senate. And so, just working with a lot of different people, and it was good because we got tremendous amount of perspectives. If you look at the bill, how we first wrote it, how finally it came out, you could arguably say that it was, completely hoghoused, but the purpose never changed. It's just we learned with different perspectives what to put in, what to take out to get everyone to come together and to make it work within a legal framework.
Yeah, and imagine that's one bill out of whatever 1,000 plus there was, and 80 days of legislating gives you an idea just how much work has to be done to actually get a bill to the governor's desk. Right?
Oh, completely. It's I always say something else about bills. I think the process, the system, is made for bills to die. That's its purpose. So it's like going through a gauntlet, right? I mean, you got committees, you got debates, and then you got the House and Senate floor votes. You got more debates, you got more committees. Governor could veto it, right? So I think the goal of the process is that only the best ones, should get through. Whether that works or not, we'll leave it up to constituents to decide. But I think that bills are the process is made for bills to die.
Is there anything that surprised you in your time that you just, sort of was a curveball?
Something that was a little bit of a curveball for me, and I know it's been something one of the bills that I introduced, and it died in the Senate, was this introduction of agency bills that we have here. I think there might be another state that allows this, but when it was first explained to me, back in December, I was like, I thought someone was, they were kidding. And I was like, why would anybody other than a legislator get to introduce a bill? Especially when we're talking from an agency that's effectively an executive branch agency. Why is that? And so that is something that has really kind of been odd to me. And so I introduced a bill. We'll see. I'll introduce the next session that doesn't purely, just get rid of agency bills, although there are some bills out there that want to do that, because there's sometimes the agencies truly have cleanup bills. Like, hey, we found all this stuff that doesn't match. Can you just fix it? Real fixes. But then, in my opinion, the goal is to not introduce policy, right? Just a cleanup bill shouldn't really be minor on changing policy, just, cleaning up things. And so I'd like to have legislation that says that agency bills can't introduce policy, and you could have legislative management before the session starts, kind of separate out the bills and say, hey, these ones are cleanup bills, push them through. We just need to clean up our code. First, these are policy. Go find a legislator. I can go on for days about this because there's pros and cons on both sides, and I've heard many. But one thing that really surprised me was that non-legislators can introduce bills, and because we hear all bills here in this legislature through the through committee, and every one of them gets an up or down floor vote, that means that anybody in the executive branch could come up with any bill, introduce it, and put every single legislator on, basically say you will have to vote on this because at some point it'll make. Now it could die in one house or the other, and then the other house doesn't see it. But wherever it's introduced, at least one house has to entertain the idea from the executive branch.
Interesting. I mentioned our sponsors for the Meet Your Legislator series are our folks from the Lignite Energy Council and the North Dakota Petroleum Council. Talk a little bit about the importance of the energy industry and what you've learned through the session about those two.
Well, it's been very interesting. not to be too controversial, I am a huge fan of coal, petroleum. Drill, baby, drill, as President Trump says. Let's get that stuff out. Where I've learned something interesting things that comes to the whole carbon dioxide on the pipelines, and I did vote no on some of those measures to keep it going. I am still not sold on whether or not carbon dioxide is truly a common commodity, right? If you're a common commodity, you get common carrier status, and then you can move it through like everything else. If you use it for enhanced oil recovery, exactly, then you could most likely get more oil out, and we definitely need to do that. But because of the federal government rules and how they incentivize, right now they incentivize to put it away underground than to use it for enhanced oil recovery, and so. That's been a very interesting part for me to learn, because I'm like, if you're going to take a product that is a common commodity, so this is a great commodity, everyone needs it, but let's stick it on the ground and hope it turns into limestone. And then once we put a lot of it away, then maybe we can start using it for enhanced oil recovery. That portion of me does make me think twice about, is it really a common commodity? So that's the only part that's actually been interesting to me in learning about energy. From that perspective, so that part I was gotten 100% along with coal and oil, but big picture coal, oil, it's what makes the world's economy work, and we are very lucky in North Dakota, very blessed to have so much energy that's just beneath our feet, and I am just. I'm really excited that we get to use it, and obviously debates are how we pull it out, how we use it, how much get taxed, how much doesn't get taxed, how much has to go back to the people. A lot of debates that come up from that, but it's good, because that means we're thinking really, really hard about what we need to be doing with our natural resources that I definitely think we should be looking to use as much as we can every day.
Curious how much you hear from your constituents, emails, texts, what kind of feedback do you get throughout the session?
Oh, the emails and texts don't stop. They don't stop. And sometimes it slows down 20, 30 a day. Other times, if there's big bills that are coming, I've gotten about 100 to 200 emails a day in text. So, as you know, here in North Dakota, we don't have staff. It's just us, right? My office is either, my car or my desk up in the Senate. And, we go through them. But, no, you get a lot of really good feedback, not just from your constituents, but, everyone around the state. And so that has been a really good source of input, of kind of seeing, feel it out where everyone's at. There are some issues where you can really see that there's a lot of people on one side of the issue versus another. But the majority, as I look through, it's, maybe 50-50, 40-60, you can say, well, the 60 have it, but, it's tough to tell. Did I really get everyone's email? Did I not? And so it has been a good source of information, and I'm glad constituents can reach out. My phone number is there. I encourage people to pick up the phone and call me. I'll either answer or I'll call you back, but I have had some amazing long conversations with some constituents and some that aren't my constituents, but obviously live in North Dakota. And it has been great to hear their perspectives.
Last question for you is the property tax debate in its final hours, I guess, with the conference committee being reported. You got $1,250 per primary residence in the Senate version. You got $1,450 over in the Senate. I've heard today somebody thought it might even go back up to $1,500. Where are you at on it? What do you want to see happen?
I have an interesting perspective that, say if I were king for a day, the first part of it is property tax is tax at the local level, right? So I part of me cringes to think that the state is getting involved in property tax. That's just one more tax the state has to handle. So I would prefer if the state wasn't, in this issue in the first place. I don't think it's the right place for it. But that being said, we are where we are. I know that property tax, including me, people, see us senators, representatives, and they think we're immune from this. No, I pay my property tax as well as everyone else, and I think that it has gotten out of control. So I definitely want to see some relief, But with that, I think we need to have what I not quite sure I'm seeing is do we have a long-term way to reduce property tax to a level where people feel comfortable paying it, but that the state can get out of paying the portion of it? Or are we in a position where we're not? Is the true cost of local things like fire, police, roads, everything that property tax goes to? I mean, we do have 6 mills for schools. I'll kind of ignore that because that's its own little portion of it. By the way, I do think that the state should just pay that from the get-go. I think that should be taken out of property tax. It's the state's responsibility per the Constitution to provide state education, so I really think that should come from the state. But everything else, have we gotten to a point where it's just so expensive that we can expect property taxes of this level? And the last thing that I would like to see is move from being property tax based on value, and I would really like to see primary residence move to something like square footage, and I use square footage as an example, could be something else, because I think oftentimes what happens is you might lower the mills, but maybe the value of your house goes up, right? And sometimes that value goes up is valid, and sometimes you could arguably say it's arbitrary, right? What's the value of something? The value of something is when you sell it, that's the value. And so I think that if we had, instead of moving 2 levers at the same time, and I'm not implying at all, governments do this. They know how much they need, and those prices get set, and I understand that. But I think sometimes constituents don't feel that way. So if you had a one set price, this is how much it is, it might, feel like you understand the process a little better. So I think if we took one of the 2 variables out, it might even make it better for property taxes. So that's kind of where I sit on it. But absolutely any property tax bill that comes out to truly make a difference with constituents and lowering that, count on, I'll be voting yes. I think less taxes are better.
Thanks for the time. We appreciate you and your hard work, and look forward to conversations in future sessions.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you so much for having me, and you will see. I think we're going to be doing just fine. Like the governor's search, North Dakota was great on the 1st of January, and we're going to continue to be great and do great things.
Thanks, Senator.